Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to go over everything that's happening in the Fantom ecosystem right now. So recently I put out a review of the Avalanche ecosystem as it is today, and that's what I'm doing here with this Fantom video. I'm also going to have a Solana ecosystem review video out in a few days, so stay tuned if you want to see that one. So first things first, why is Fantom getting all of this attention? Well, as you can see here, the Fantom Foundation announced a 370 million Fantom token incentive program, which in today's Fantom valuation is about $500 million. So this is a very large incentive plan. Now, Fantom is actually taking a very different approach to how we've seen other liquidity incentives. So they're actually going to be incentivizing developers and teams to build on Fantom, which you can see here. So if you look here, there's a lot of requirements to actually get any of these FTM tokens from the foundation, but essentially if a team attracts enough TVL for their project, they can then apply for these rewards and they'll be granted them. Now, the team that receives these rewards can either pass it on to users on the platform, they can take it for their treasury, they can take it for themselves, or some combination of those three options. So this is a very different approach to a standard liquidity mining program that we see on Avalanche or we saw on Polygon. I actually think this is a much better approach because you're actually incentivizing developers to build unique platforms. You're not just getting all of this parasitic liquidity that's just going to jump in for the rewards and then exit the ecosystem as soon as the reward incentives are over. So before diving into what you can actually do on Fantom, I'm going to direct you all to this article here on actually a breakdown of how Fantom works as a blockchain itself. So as you can see here, it's a proof of stake blockchain, and they're using a different type of consensus mechanism called the Lachesis protocol. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But essentially, this is a different take on proof of stake that does require some delegation to validators. Now, because I am such a proponent of decentralization, that's why I have such a huge bias towards Ethereum, I do want to briefly touch on the validator situation with Fantom. So as you can see here, there's about 53 validators, which is really not much at all. And then if I sort by total staked FTM tokens, which essentially is how much has been delegated to this validator, you can see it's actually quite concentrated and it really decreases rather quickly. So a small number of validators really have a lot of the stake delegated to them here, which is not great to see, but it is possible that could change in the future. Now, I know most of you probably aren't as interested in this, and that's totally fine. So with that all out of the way, I'm just going to go over to the most popular dApps that are actually out on Fantom and what you can really do in the ecosystem. So I'm going to link this below. This website's called DeFi Llama, and it's a great way to get a look at the TVL and the distribution of TVL on a blockchain. You can see after this program was announced, there was a huge spike in TVL. And if we scroll down, we can see the TVL rankings for different protocols on the Fantom blockchain. This is going to be a great resource if you're trying to find new projects, but I have handpicked a few that I think are probably going to be the most popular, so I'm just going to jump right into that now. So similar to the Avalanche ecosystem, a lot of you, if you bridge over to Fantom, you're going to want to find a money market so that you don't have to sell the assets you really want to hold like ETH or BTC. You can just borrow against them. So in this case, Scream is the main money market on Fantom. And so if we scroll down here, we can see actually what the rates for funding are like. So right off the bat in the supply APY in the left column here, you can see the rewards are quite good. You can see for stablecoins, it's about 15 to 20%, and then an asset like ETH give you a supply APY of about 10.6%, and then a reward bonus of 4.8% in Scream tokens on top of that. Now these APYs are obviously great. So I have no problem depositing my ETH in a protocol like this, getting a 15% or so yield in total, and then just being happy with that. So I'm not actually going to borrow against it in most cases. And the reason why is if you look at the borrower APYs, they're actually quite high. So if you borrow against your ETH in say DAI, you're going to be paying a 38% borrow APY. You are going to get a 15% or so incentive to make up for that, but this is still a huge APY to pay. So for that reason, I think it doesn't actually make sense to borrow on the Scream app. But if you do want to get a yield on single staking assets, this is obviously a great option. It is one of the older projects on Fantom, so it's probably on the safer side. But of course, you want to do your own research and look at the audits before deploying capital there. Now, as far as DEXs, SpookySwap is actually the most popular. So completely an unprofessional UI. I wish they cleaned that up a bit, but I'm just on the farm tab here because I know that's what most of you are interested in, and I've just sorted it by APR so you can get a sense of what farms might be attractive for you. You can see that the APRs are quite high, but for me personally, I'm not really compelled by a lot of these pools. So if I were to invest in one of these pools, probably the one I would look at is something like a stablecoin Fantom token pair, because I would think that would be the safest. And the APRs there are about 170%, which is of course great, but one thing you have to keep in mind is that pretty much all of the tokens in the Fantom ecosystem, as you can see here, have gone up a ton. So just switching this to the 14-day chart, you can see it's been almost up only. So the token's pretty much 3x'd in about 2 weeks. So for me, that'd be a scary time to hold this token. Now with that said, these APRs are quite high, so if you are comfortable holding Fantom, maybe it makes sense to do a Fantom stablecoin pair. At least you're de-risking your Fantom position there a bit, and you're getting a yield for it, which is obviously better than nothing. And there are also a lot of other pools that you might be interested in, like a Curve Fantom pool if you like the Curve token, a Fantom BTC pair. So they really are giving out pretty good incentives for these liquidity positions. But that said, as I always say, these will decrease over time as more people discover them and deposit into these pools. So as many of you know, Andre is pretty involved with Fantom, so of course Curve is deployed on Fantom, which is pretty cool because this is a blue chip project. And as we can see here, the rewards are pretty solid for these stablecoin pools. So this FUSDT pool has about a 23% APY on it, which is pretty solid. Now, I'd recommend you compare these APYs to the Scream money market, just because I believe those were a bit higher, so definitely check that out. But the benefit here is you're getting Curve tokens, which obviously is a known project's governance tokens, whereas the Scream tokens you might not want to hold, so you can weigh out the pros and cons there. I do think that Curve is going to add more pools here once those incentives kick in, and they can incentivize more pools with the Fantom token, but for now there's really only these 3 ones, which is a bit disappointing. So lastly, I did want to go over Beefy Finance, which is a pretty popular multi-chain yield compounder, and they actually have some cool offerings here, so I do think it's important to check these out. So right off the bat here, you can see that some of the ones you might be most interested in are the single staking WBTC, Fantom, and ETH pools. And these all use the Scream money market, but they compound the rewards for you. So you're not holding that Scream token ever, you're selling it, or the app is selling it automatically for ETH tokens for you and just compounding that position. Now, a 27.5% APY on ETH is obviously great, almost best in class, I would say, so this is very cool, but of course you are taking on smart contract risk here, you're taking on Beefy Finance risk and Scream Finance risk, so definitely something to keep in mind. It's definitely not risk-free, but there are some really cool pools here. And if we scroll down, you can see they also have auto compounding for LP positions on SpookySwap and Curve, so you're definitely going to want to scroll through this and see if there's any farms that appeal to you. Now again, as with everything, these yields will compress, I would imagine, as more people come in. Of course, that could be counteracted by the incentives that Fantom is providing, but the timeline on those is a bit rough. We don't know when they're coming, so I would imagine these yields would compress a bit before the incentives kick in. So overall, I have to give Fantom credit for designing a better way to incentivize liquidity. Yes, this means the yields on Fantom are not going to be crazy high like they were on Polygon, and they probably will be on Avalanche. They're going to be more spread out here, but they're going to be more sustainable and incentivize better long-term development in the ecosystem. As far as what's available on the network itself, there really isn't too much innovation happening right now. We're definitely just seeing projects that were copied from Ethereum, Polygon, BSC, etc. But who knows, maybe this incentive program will work and it will bring new types of DeFi projects and NFT projects, etc. into Fantom. So comparing Fantom to other L1s, it's certainly on the more centralized side, especially when comparing it to Ethereum and Avalanche. But with that said, we'll see what happens. I do think the incentive program is going to bring a higher quality of developer into this space, so I am hopeful that there could be some innovation on the Fantom blockchain. Now with that said, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't yet. Thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.